In 5 years, the world of cryptocurrencies will look very different from what it does now. And people will need to have their coins in self-custody, if you like, in order to be able to interact with the public blockchain. Think about, interacting with the internet. Like, how do you interact with the internet? You want direct connection to it. So I think this is what's happening right now, and it's very different from what we see, which is, this ETF phenomenon.
I'm here with Pascal Gauthier, CEO of Ledger. Needs no lengthy introduction, but somebody who's done a number of interesting things in the digital asset space. So I'm very excited to hear what he has to say today. Not only is he the CEO of Ledger, I think I said founder, and I believe, Pascal, you can give us the story. You were on the original founding team, but became the CEO a bit later, but also a founder of Kaiko and a number of other contributions to our digital asset space. Thank you very much for being here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me.
So, Pascal, let's get right into it. I'm going to use an American reference here. What inning are we in, or what quarter shall we say, in terms of the innovation generally for the digital asset space?
I think we are. It's funny because it looks one thing, but I think it's actually something quite different. So, what it looks right now is that sort of Bitcoin is here to stay. So that's true. ETFs are making the news. New investors are coming in through the ETFs, and it looks like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies have become like sort of Wall Street assets that Wall Street is okay to trade now, and taking it away from sort of the original use case of like peer-to-peer payment and me to you without intermediary, et cetera, et cetera. And so it feels like that the speculative aspect of crypto is sort of winning, like digital gold and so on and so forth. I think that's what we see now. I actually think that something different is actually happening. It's harder to see though, because it's there are a lot of projects right now that are sort of building on top of L1s, and they're building the applicative layer that runs on top of Bitcoin, on top of Ethereum, on top of Solana, et cetera, et cetera. And that applicative layer is very important because if you want to interact with most of what's being built today, you actually need to own your private keys. And so having your Bitcoin with an ETF is not going to help you there. Bitcoin with an ETF is a use case and will remain a use case. But I'm just saying that, in order to interact with the blockchain the way it was planned from the beginning, you will need to have your private keys. And I think, for us, what's very exciting, and we were at Bitcoin 24 in Nashville when we announced our new products, the Stacks and Flex, which are two new hardware. And the reason why we designed those hardware with like bigger screen is because we feel that this applicative layer is coming strong. It's actually also coming on top of Bitcoin. In order to interact with it, you need to have a larger screen in order to see what you're doing and to see what you sign and to clear sign everything. And we believe that this is what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And in 5 years, the world of cryptocurrencies will look very different from what it does now. And people will need to have their coins in self-custody, if you like, in order to be able to interact with the public blockchain. Think about interacting with the internet. Like, how do you interact with the internet? You want direct connection to it. So I think this is what's happening right now, and it's very different from what we see, which is this ETF phenomenon.
So great answer, and thanks for diving right in. I let me pick up on that a little bit. I mentioned before we came on air, I come from a TradFi background, went through the applicable 12-step program. I left that behind. I'm now in the digital asset space. But as I think back in TradFi, there was a century-long effort to move from effectively hardware wallets or having to hold the physical underlying stock certificates or bonds to more electronification. And now in digital asset space, to some extent, it's going back the other way. And one of the things that I know you'll have the best perspective on is this question. Are hardware wallets for everyone that are involved, that own digital assets? Are they just the province of more sophisticated users? Are they just something that's needed by a larger holder of digital assets?
Everybody will need a hardware wallet. And when I mean everybody, I mean everybody. Is it in this current form factor or not? That's a different question. But would you need like some hardware security in your life? The answer is yes. There are two reasons why. You have more and more secrets online. Your private key for your Bitcoin is one secret. Your passkey to log on to your Telegram account or WhatsApp, etc., that's another secret, and so on and so forth. Your identity, etc., etc. And we know for sure that in 5 years there will be more hacking than today. Every year is a new record high for hacking, and so therefore, it's very trivial actually. It's a must that security for the end user increase from what it is now. The second phenomenon, I think, which is in parallel, but sort of linked to this, is will we have more digital assets in 5 years or 10 years than we have now as users? The answer is obviously yes. Whether it is you have a Bitcoin or an NFT that is attached to, like a real estate, there is a future where we will be tokenized beings. And so if you take, hacking number one, and then we become tokenized beings, and you can see why you need better security in the future. The third thing is this. If you think about it, like the way the technology has been designed so far is, it's been made easy, but we own nothing online. And so there is even like a thought to say, now we start to own things online, Bitcoin you own, et cetera, et cetera. Private property and digital private property is actually a fundamental human right. And as more things are becoming digital, it is crazy to think that your only option will be to delegate the ownership of these things to Apple, to Google, or to absolutely a third party all the time. And you have an alternative where you actually can own these things yourself and delegate the use yourself to who you want to delegate to. And I think this is the future we're building towards, actually to give users and citizens an option to own their stuff and then to delegate to others should they want to. So these are things.
I came over to the digital asset space in part because of the libertarian values. And I agree with everything you're saying. And I think, to pick an absurd example, if someone has $1 billion of Bitcoin and they're not taking precautions to make sure they have full ownership and control over the keys, then I question their sanity. On the flip side, my father, who is just getting into digital assets, wants to hold a very small amount to dip his toe in the water. My first thought wouldn't be, hey, first thing, go out, buy a hardware wallet. It would likely be find a counterparty that's creditworthy, that's legitimate, transparent, has Big Four auditors, a Coinbase, for example, on the one hand, or even a Bullish, fully conflicted. When I mentioned that comment, I'm the CEO of Bullish, and establish your small position there. Why? It abstracts away some of the complexity around private keys, seed phrases, and so on and so forth. So my last question or two is really just trying to understand. You've proven product market fit. You've proven it. Millions and millions of Ledger wallets are being used and adding lots of value. I'm just trying to understand, what is the target market, and is there kind of a reasonable cutoff, or should I think of it, no, a couple of years from now, even my father, anybody who gets into digital assets from the jump is going to, first thing they do, hey, give me a hardware wallet to protect my holdings.
I mean, it's a great question. I think what you're saying is true, but eventually in time, it's not, your father is not the target audience. When you have a technology revolution or a monetary revolution, usually the elder generation is the last to sort of pick up and or doesn't want to pick up and or it's not been designed for them. That's one way. But thinking about the problem, the other way is to say, we are designing products for the mass, and so therefore, the ledger of today, and especially those two new ones that we just launched, are designed exactly for this. Is we made it much easier to use, to onboard, etc., and we made it easier so more people can actually onboard. Otherwise, you just designing products that are just for the very savvy or the geeks. This is not a real business to consumer. Business to consumer means that any consumer can sort of use your product if they sort of pay attention to what they're doing, but you made it easy from a UX UI perspective to do it. So this is the second part of the answer. We made it so much easier to do it now with these two, and this is typically what we'll continue on doing. And so, I think you probably need a generation, but younger generation will adopt Bitcoin like no one else. And the products that are coming to market today and will come to market in the next 5 years will make it even easier for anyone really to join cryptocurrency.
Am I thinking of this right in your space right? There's a balance between having an offline wallet that protects against hacking, phishing. I personally am hugely paranoid about phishing. It's so low tech but so effective. Exactly. So if you have an offline wallet, you're protected there. However, on the one hand, you want that protection. On the other hand, customers probably come to you quite often and ask you to help abstract away some of the difficulties that come with being purely offline. Hey, hook me up to my DeFi apps. Help me back up my seed phrase. And you're in the middle constantly trying to say, okay, what can I do from an ease of use perspective to help my customers while also maintaining perfect sort of isolation from the broader internet? Is that the right delicate balance that you have to navigate?
Not exactly. So first, there is I think misconception that comes from the inception of Bitcoin and crypto, etc. At the time, 2008, the only way to keep your seed phrase protected sort of was to keep it offline. And so there is all this theory about like cold storage and air gap computers, etc., etc. Okay, I want to say that this is actually not a good idea. It's technology of the past is bad. It's most of the time it's security theater. Once it's air gapped, at some point you have to make a transaction, etc. So how do you do that? And so Ledger has developed technologies from the beginning. Actually, NanoS was released in 2016, and Ledger exists since 2014. And before we had before NanoS we had other products, but let's say our big hit was NanoS, and now we have the S Plus, the X, Stacks, and Flex. We design products so it doesn't really matter if you connect it to the internet. I mean, think about this. How do you scale an industry that is supposed to do online transactions if every time you connect something to the internet, you are at risk of losing that money? So we've designed a product, and we have product and services today where it doesn't really matter if you connect it or not. You have the same level of security. You don't need to ask yourself if you're doing a mistake or if your money is going to go because you're not behaving the way you should. Whether your money is at rest or whether your money is on the move, if you use Ledger and Ledger Live, which is the companion app, you're extremely secure. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that we enhance the connectivity, between your Ledger and your Web3 experience or your, blockchain experience. So you don't need to compromise on security ever. And as long as you do everything into
Pascal, can I just push back a little bit?
Yeah.
At Bullish, my day job, we operate a custodian. And the way we think of it is the moment you connect anything to the outside world, you're introducing a vector, a threat vector. Yeah. So I'm not certain what you mean when you say you don't have to compromise on security. Maybe you're saying you'll still have the highest quality security, but if I hold something in my pocket, clearly that has a different security, a different threat vector than if that thing in my pocket can connect anywhere on the internet, let alone the entirety of the internet, but obviously anywhere. If it can connect to Balancer because I want to stake some assets on Balancer and earn a return, so on and so forth. So That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. So no. So to be very blunt and very honest, yes, we disagree. So I think actually to do security like this is somewhat dangerous. My CTO just posted something. There's a new attack called Rambo attack that actually steals data using RAM in air-gapped computers. So it's not because you're air-gapped that you're unhackable first. Like, that's a misconception of security. And we believe we have technology that is better than air-gapped from a security standpoint, but like not a little better, like much better. Because when you air-gap something, first, it is not true that it's unhackable. Number two, it is air-gapped, but at some point you need to make a transaction. So what do you do then? And what is the process around that? And so usually, if you have a manual process or human process, this is where the attack is taking form, like who has access to what, et cetera, et cetera. And anyways, there is technology in the market that exists today, secure elements, chip and pin technology, or, HSMs, or, various other form of technologies. But let's say that we use HSMs and chip and pin that allow you to be, connected or not. It doesn't really matter, and it doesn't change the security model. The security model has been designed actually to be connected or not. And it's not because you're connected to the internet that you can suddenly steal the money. And so I think this is very important also because, coins will always move. The industry started in 2008 with basically buy and hold. You would have Bitcoin, you would hold it because nobody would pay much with it or, exchange it, et cetera, et cetera. But now, like I said before, like you're entering into a world where your money will always move, or you always interact with your private keys and DeFi and art NFTs and whatever it's going to be. And so because your money is moving all the time, like you do need like security technologies that make it easy to move money left and right without always being under the threat of a hack. And so we have that technology ready today. So this is the good news. We are powering consumers on the one side, but also enterprise on the other, and it works really well. We've never lost a dollar. We've never mismanaged a dollar, because there are two things, right? There's security of private key, and then there is management of those private keys, like who has access, who does what, etc.
Pascal, switching gears a bit, there's a bit of a kerfuffle where, as I understand it, you offered your users an optional service if they wanted help managing their seed phrases, and then there was some pushback where, well, if governments subpoenaed those seed phrases and went and subpoenaed the various custodians, they could cobble it all back together. I'm going to answer the question before I ask it. I thought that was all kind of a little silly. If people are asking you to provide a service with their data, it's certainly subject at some points to governments interfering. If you don't want that, then don't ask for the provision of the service. But in this, feel free to comment on that generally, number one. Number two, in this zeitgeist, this moment, I ask you this question for that reason, not that you're somebody who knows a thing or two about France. What is your reaction to what is going on with Telegram in France and Pava in particular? So two different topics, but I wanted you to understand how in my mind they are a bit related.
No, I understand exactly why you bring them together. Let me answer the first one, and then I'll go to the second one. So on the first one, I think, whenever you have your customer base saying something, anything, you have to be, you have to listen, and you have to be very careful to what's being said. And so we got some pushback on the fact that the code of this product was not open source. And so we did open source it because that was a good pushback. Because the main idea was, okay, but is it safe? Is there a backdoor, etc.? And so the fact that we open source the code, anyone can check now what the product does, and at least it does what it's supposed to do, basically, and which is enhance security. There was some misconception about how our products actually work, and the fact that when you own a ledger, it's only you who can dictate to your ledger what it's supposed to do. There's no central repository. Ledger cannot access your ledger. So there's nothing that we can do in order to make your ledger do something that it's not supposed to do. And even if you don't believe all of this, because people are, they only trust what they can see. Longevity usually is the way to prove this. So if you're in the market for months and years with the product, and the product does what it's supposed to do, then you can trust for the product to. Then you can trust the product. And this is the story of Ledger. This is why we have a good brand. And now the product has been in the market for months and months and months, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And the product is actually, helping new consumers to come in to self-custody with better trusts, because most consumers don't trust themselves, and most consumers will say, what do I do with 24 words? This is an elegant answer to this. And if you do it, only you have still access to your 24 words. I use it personally. It's a beautiful service. We have thousands of customers that are using it today. And we heard the naysayers sort of on X and other social media. What we didn't hear was all the people that sometimes lose their
right. Yeah, it's a pretty common problem.
It's a super common problem. And, we see
it's more common than being subpoenaed.
Exactly.
By federal government.
Exactly.
Right.
And so subpoenaed, we had zero until now, etc. And like you said, like it's an optional product. Like if you feel that you're going to be subpoenaed, like please don't use the product. But it's really like it's an extreme case, etc. And so when it comes to Telegram, look, I don't have much to say because again, like I don't really know what's happening, and nobody really knows what's happening. So I don't want to be, talking without merit or without knowing anything. All I can say is the Telegram technology is very different from ours in the sense that we don't have any central repository. So we don't have access to anything, and so we have nothing to give.
I'm going to let you go in a minute here. Let me ask you one final question. You're one of these superheroes in the digital asset space, and in the sense that you've built multiple successful businesses. So I love mentors and people I could look up to. I remember when I was a kid coming into industries, I'd find people like you and try to learn more about them. Tell us something about you. What do you do in your spare time when you're not building, building successful businesses? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Well, first of all, I really like what I do, so I don't really treat my job as a problem. My job is one of my passions, and so when I'm not working, I like to ski. I love my food and drinks. I'm French, so that's my thing. I love to travel. Again, thanks to Ledger, I get to travel in Asia, in the US, etc. To meet new cultures and to work with different people from different part of the world. I think that's amazing. It's I feel very fortunate that I get to do this. I'll be in Singapore for Token 2049.
In that vein, we're just coming off a very successful Consensus conference down in Austin, and you may be aware we launched Consensus Hong Kong February 19th and 20th. Looks like it will be another home run event, and we'd love to have you there as a speaker. So I'd like to make that invitation live here, and also just to say thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. I loved it. Hope it went okay for you as well. Any closing remarks before we sign off?
Yeah. So in 2014, when I started Kaiko, CoinDesk was also just starting in London, or maybe they started like a year before, etc. So I've known CoinDesk from the very, very beginning, and the team then, and the different phases of CoinDesk. I have to say that from what it was very, very small, it has become something really good, and it's a good business. I'm glad that it's in your hands now, and you guys can take it to the next level. And the Consensus conferences have always been a beacon for the crypto world. So again, like we like to participate. We're always present, and of course, I'll be in Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, the CoinDesk and especially on the media side, I think they're really important. Like you were saying, with Ledger being important for the growth of the digital assets industry and adoption broadly, so too is professional, incisive media that writes positive stories, but also roots out bad actors and I'm constantly in awe of our CoinDesk newsroom that just works their butts off. So I appreciate you making those comments. I concur.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pascal. Have a great week, and talk soon.